Joanna Cherry.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise with the endorsement of the Father of the House for my motion L, which I am about to move, and I am very grateful to him for that. And also for my honourable friend, the member for Nail Nyar, who has prosecuted this issue of revocation with such vigour in the House over the last few months. And I am very glad, Mr Speaker, that my motion has cross-party support from all parties in this House, the official backing of the SNP, the Liberal Democrats, Plaid Cymru, the Independent Group, and I know many Labour members have said to me that they intend to support this motion, and I very much hope that Labour will reconsider their decision not to whip on it. I give way to my honourable friend.
And surely anybody who has said in this House no to no deal has to then support her motion L, because that gives mechanism to no deal, which would be a revocation.
Absolutely, and if there's one thing that we can achieve this afternoon, if we support this motion, is we can categorically rule out a no deal. Because what this motion is a revocation backstop, if you like. Because the motion stipulates that if we get to within 2 days of exit day with no agreed deal, and Parliament does not positively approve no deal, then the Government must revoke the Article 50 notice, and we will stay in the EU. But it's important to understand that revocation doesn't mean that we could never notify our intention to leave again. That is incorrect. If you read the decision of the Grand Chamber in the Court of Justice in the European Union, in the case which I and others brought, that's what it says. I will in a moment, but if I could just make this clear. This motion, Mr Speaker, has been carefully drafted by myself and a team of lawyers to give the Government a clear and unequivocal instruction, and it's the only way to make the Prime Minister hold to her promise which she gave this House on Monday when she said, and I quote, "Unless this House agrees to it, no deal will not happen." This motion achieves that unless this House agrees to it, no deal, it will not happen. And it's the culmination of cross-party work which commenced with a group of Scottish parliamentarians, including myself, another SNP parliamentarian, 2 Scottish Greens and 2 Scottish Labour MEPs, and the English QC Joe Mon, who's helped me draft the motion, when we fought the British Government all the way to the Court of Justice to establish that the United Kingdom, if it got into the kind of mess that we're now in, would have the right to unilaterally revoke Article 50. And it's important that the instruction is clear and unequivocal, because if Parliament gives the Government a clear and unequivocal instruction, then if the Government fails to follow that clear and unequivocal instruction, because it's clear and unequivocal, we would have a range of political and legal remedies to make sure that they did what the democratic rule of this House, what the democratic vote of this House was to do. And I give way to the honourable gentleman.
Thank the honourable leader for giving way. I just wanted to give her the opportunity maybe to correct something that she may have not meant to say when she talked about this amendment having all party support. It doesn't have the support of the DUP, because of course we believe that when the referendum result came out, that the people of the United Kingdom had said what they wished, and we do not want to revoke that decision or change it.
The honourable gentleman will forgive me if I sometimes forget that the DUP are not part of the government, because it very much but I'm very happy to say that I can live without the support of the Democratic Unionist Party. This is a cross-party motion, except for the DUP, and it continues the cross-party working which got the judgment for the Court of Justice. And what today is about is cross-party working to try and get us out of the mess that we're in. Now, I'm going to make some progress because I'm very conscious of the time strictures. This is actually, Conservative members of this House should support this motion because it's making good on the promise that their Prime Minister, and she still is the Prime Minister the last time I looked, the promise that their Prime Minister made to the Commons earlier this week when she said, unless this House agrees to it, no deal will not happen. Labour MPs should support this because it fits with their manifesto. They said in their manifesto, Labour recognises that leaving the EU with no deal is the worst possible deal for Britain and it would do damage to our economy and trade. We will reject no deal as a viable option. And so this motion is the only means today for Labour to fulfil that manifesto promise. And I know that the Labour Party have repeatedly asked the government to rule out no deal, so I really entreat them to support this motion today as the means of doing that. I give way to the Right Honourable and Learned Gentleman, who is a co-sponsor of the motion.
I'm grateful to the Honourable Learned Lady. Does she agree with me that the point about this amendment is that it is there in extremis? It is not there to summarily revoke Article 50, but only to do it in the event of circumstances where there is no alternative and no ability, in fact, to get an extension that might, for example, deliver a referendum or some other conclusion.
That is exactly so, and I'm very grateful to the Right Honourable and Learned Gentleman for spelling that out so clearly and for lending his support to this motion. Fellow honourable members can support this motion even if they're supporting other motions tonight, so it should be acceptable to supporters of the current draft withdrawal agreement. For some reason that's not on the order paper today, but we might see it later in the week. But if an honourable member wished to support the Prime Minister's deal, an honourable member could also support my motion because it's a fail-safe. If an honourable member wished to support Norway Plus, an honourable member could also support my motion because it's a fail-safe. And very importantly, for those of us who wish to support a people's vote, we can also support this because it's a fail-safe. And it doesn't even preclude a general election, because the way the motion is worded is to make it kick in on the penultimate day before exit day, which is, of course, at the moment a moving target. So it leaves the door open to a general election, which I know some of us would quite like to see, particularly the SNP in Scotland, as we're riding so high in the opinion polls. But today, Mr Speaker, is about cross-party working, and today is also about democracy, because the decision we are taking is of generational importance for the United Kingdom, the decision between revoke and no deal. And it ought to be the representatives of the people of the United Kingdom in this House that decide between revoke and no deal, not the Prime Minister of a minority government. And I give way to my other co-sponsor.
She mentioned earlier the spirit of cross-party working, and as somebody who signed her amendment, and she asked about the Labour whipping arrangements, I can assure her that the Labour whip is not to oppose her amendment. It's simply a recommendation to abstain, and I'm sure that a number of my colleagues will be supporting it.
I'm very grateful to the Right Honourable Gentleman for clarifying that and also for his support. But I'm puzzled as to why Labour members would be instructed to abstain on this, as it is the only means for them of fulfilling their manifesto promise. But I leave that to Labour members who I'm sure, like me, will have been receiving the same amount of lobbying.
6 million. Sorry if I wasn't clear. It's not an instruction, it's a recommendation. It's entirely different when it comes to whipping.
6 million people.
I'm grateful to him for clarifying that, and I'm feeling more and more encouraged that many more Labour MPs are going to support this. So I'm not going to take up any more time, and simply to thank all members who have signed and supported my motion.